Hey, I'm Nick Kalikas.
Welcome to the show where you get first look at the latest odds before they hit the sports books.
And I'm Miguel Iturrate.
This is the place for a unique look at MMA from a gambler's perspective.
And this is MMAOddsbreaker.
Welcome to the show. Nick Kalikas alongside Miguel Iturrate.
We're going to get things started this week by looking at last weekend's UFC 150. Main event of Frankie Edgar versus Ben Henderson. We'll look at some of the other fights there.
And on today's Oddsbreaker segment, I'll be joined by Damon Martin from MMAweekly.com and also Brett Okamoto from ESPN.com. Both guys will help me break 4 original odds that have not hit the sportsbooks yet.
Well, Nick, let's get right into it. Lightweight title fight between Frankie Edgar and Ben Henderson. They did it again. A little bit of a controversy, very close fight. What were your thoughts?
I think if these guys were to fight 10 times, it'd be close every time, man. Just a super fight for both guys. It's unfortunate that there is a controversy with the decision. I do believe that Frankie edged out the fight. It was very close. A lot of those rounds were so close to call that you could see it going either way. But we have to move on. I mean, Dana White said Ben Henderson won both meetings, so that's how it's going to end up. Frankie does not get a rematch. It sounds like he is going to maybe drop down to 145, get a title shot pretty quick, I'm assuming, if not right away. So Frankie's not done yet for sure, but Ben Henderson does retain the strap, and he's going to be a good champion, hard to beat.
Yeah, Ben Henderson, he showed some things in this fight. I think actually I gave Ben the first fight. I gave Edgar the second fight, so I sort of feel like Edgar maybe got a little bit robbed here. I could see why Frankie thought he had taken the fight at the end of the fight, and I could feel for his disappointment. But I think you're right. I think Nate Diaz and Ben Henderson is going to be a hell of a fight, and we'll be breaking that here shortly on Oddsbreaker at some point, too.
That's right. It should be an awesome fight, and I'm glad Nate Diaz is waiting there for his shot at Ben Henderson, because I think it's going to be an interesting fight. And Nate Diaz, obviously, from his performances lately, we can never count the guy out. So no surprise, Ben Henderson is going to be a favorite, but you'll have to wait and see how high of a favorite he will be on a future episode. Honorable mention real quick with some of the other 150 pay-per-view fights. Who impressed you and who did not?
Well, I thought Max Holloway looked great. I think the kid at 145 has got a lot of talent. He took out Justin Lawrence. Didn't make short work of him, but grinded out a real solid victory. I thought he was very impressive. I was impressed with Cerrone. I love watching Cerrone fight. I thought this had the makings of the fight of the night. I think he went home with a lot of money. I was really not impressed by Yushin Okami. I was really not impressed by Jake Shields. I thought both of them fought methodical to the point of boring, let's just say it. And I think that they need a lot of work to get jumping up into 185-pound class. I don't think either of them did themselves any good.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with you almost on every phase of that. I think Holloway was probably the most impressive in his performance, but you got to take your hat off to Cerrone after getting rocked early, surviving, then coming back and getting the KO win himself. But again, with Shields and Okami, I'm in agreement with you. I think that lackluster performances, but you know what? They had to do what they had to do to get the job done, and they won their fights, and that's the most important thing. So overall, from top to bottom, I think UFC 150 was a decent card. Yeah,
I think they actually have a couple of things that they should think about, Okami and Shields and stuff. Is it the most important thing, or is the most important thing for the fans out there to be clamoring to see you again? Because I don't think anybody is.
Time to get rolling on today's Oddsbreaker segment, introducing both of our guests. First, he's the lead writer for MMAweekly.com and also the host of MMA Weekly Radio, Damon Martin. Damon, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me on, as always.
And also joining us today is an MMA columnist for ESPN.com and can also be seen on ESPN's MMA Live, Brett Okamoto. Brett, welcome back to the show.
Hey, Nick. Thanks.
Now, both of you guys have been on the show before, so you guys are very familiar with how it works. But for those new out there that do not know how the show works, BetDSI, our sponsored sportsbook, has donated a $5K bankroll to both guys. They're going to get to pick between 4 fights I've selected today and wager $500 either on the favorite or the underdog. We're going to get started first with UFC 153, which takes place in Brazil. Coming up here on October 13th, 2012, Erick Silva versus John Fitch, a huge battle at welterweight, and we're going to get started first with Damon. Damon, it's going to be a competitive fight, a lot of hype coming in behind Erick Silva, and of course all of us know that John Fitch has been one of the most dominant welterweights in the division for a long time now. I'm going to open up Fitch as a slight favorite, minus 155. The comeback on Silva is going to be plus 125. Give me your take and give me your bet.
I'm definitely going to go with Erick Silva in this fight. I mean, we saw in his last fight, he took on a very strong wrestler in Charlie Britteman. Charlie's a very, very aggressive wrestler, and he struggled to get Silva down, struggled to put Silva in any kind of trouble. And, you know, that's Fitch's game. Fitch's game is to get a guy on his back and kind of punish them from there. I just have a hard time believing that he's going to be able to do that against a very strong, very agile welterweight like Erick Silva. And also the layoff for John Fitch, having been out as long as he has, you know, after the loss to Johnny Hendricks last year. I just like Erick Silva. I think he's a star on the rise, and I just like this matchup. I think he's going to be able to stop Fitch's takedowns, and I think eventually he's going to land the knockout. Okay, so Damon Martin is going to take the plus money, the dog money here. Erick Silva plus 125. It's going to be $500 to win 625. Let's throw it over to Brett. Brett, do you agree with Damon? Is it Erick Silva as a dog?
Yeah, I agree with Damon. If I was allowed to on the show, I'd take all my free 2,000 and put it on Erick Silva, not because I'm completely discounting what John Fitch can do. Obviously, we've seen this guy perform at a high level for years, but I just don't think you're going to get to see plus money on Erick Silva for much longer in his career. I do think that he is a star on the rise. I believe in his hype. I think he's very athletic. Even if John Fitch is able to get him to the ground, I think that he can threaten with submissions, and he can get sweeps. He can get back into a position where he likes to be. The intangibles are on his side here. He gets to fight in his hometown, in front of his home crowd in Brazil. You know, he's got a lot of confidence riding on him right now because he's looked so good over the last few years. So I'm all over Erick Silva on this, especially with these odds.
Okay, so Brett Okamoto also agrees it's Erick Silva as a dog play plus 125. So when he does hit the sports books, it's probably going to be a little bit lower. But both of our experts do agree Erick Silva over John Fitch at UFC 153. Okay, time to move on to our second fight from today's Oddsbreaker segment. From UFC on Fuel TV 6 in China, it's Rich Franklin versus Cung Le, the headliner. We're going to start off with Brett first this time. Brett, a competitive fight here at middleweight, with Rich Franklin's coming back down to middleweight for this fight, taking on a very hot Cung Le right now. The line is going to be Rich Franklin opening as the favorite, minus 245. The comeback is going to be plus 195 on Cung Le. Brett, give me your take and give me your bet.
I'm going to take Rich Franklin in this fight. I think if you put down some money on him, though, it might be a good idea to consider not watching the fight because I think it's going to be pretty close. But the reason I end up picking Rich Franklin is I think he's going to do a lot of what we saw him do in the later rounds against Wanderlei Silva in his most recent fight. I think he'll use his jab and circle quite a bit. I think that he can keep Cung Le a little bit off rhythm with that nice jab that he's got. But you spend 15 minutes in a cage with Cung Le, he's going to tag you at least a few times somewhere along the way. But I think at the end of the day, Rich Franklin will prevail, and I think he's worth a shot, although I do think that whenever you bet on a guy who's favored minus 245, you want it to be an easy run. I don't think it's going to be an easy run.
All right, so Brett, cautiously betting the juice on Rich Franklin. It's going to be minus 245, so 1225 to win 500. Let's throw it over to Damon. Damon, is Rich Franklin the play over Cung Le?
He is, and I thought Brett said it perfectly right there. I mean, that's just not an easy fight to pick. You know, Cung Le is a guy who likes to strike, has some very nasty kicks, and Rich Franklin traditionally is a striker, so he's going to play into Cung Le's game a little bit. I still like Rich to win this fight, though. I think Rich is just a more complete, better mixed martial artist than Cung Le is, but this is not a fight I'm going to be super confident in because one good kick or one good moment from Cung Le and Rich Franklin could go down. We've seen Rich Franklin get knocked down in fights before, so again, it scares me a little bit because of the stylistic matchup, but I still got to favor Rich Franklin because I just believe overall he is the better, more complete fighter.
Okay, so Damon Martin does agree. He's also laying the juice on Rich Franklin, $12.25 to win $500. So once again, both of our experts agree it's Rich Franklin over Cung Le. Okay, moving on to the third fight from today's Oddsbreaker segment, the Ultimate Fighter 16 finale, a battle between the big boys, Shane Carwin and Roy Nelson. Now, Damon, we're going to start off with you first. One of the trickiest lines I had to come out with out of the four fights that we are breaking today, it's going to be Shane Carwin minus 200. The comeback on Roy Nelson is going to be plus 150. Damon, give me your take and give me your bet.
This is another one, kind of like the Rich Franklin-Cung Le fight. It's not an easy fight to pick, but I would say I'm going to favor Roy Nelson in this fight slightly. And the reason I say that is because Roy Nelson has been been so active over the last couple of years. He's a guy who has beaten basically everyone he's fought outside of the top of the division, the Frank Mears and the Junior Dos Santoses. I like Shane Carwin a lot. I'm a big Shane Carwin fan. I think he's a dominating heavyweight, but the time off, the weight loss, all the different things he's gone through in the last couple of years since he's been out, the neck injury, all these different things, it always scares me to pick a fighter coming back from that long of a layoff with injuries and surgeries and things like that. So I'm going to favor Roy Nelson because I think that he is still a top 10 level heavyweight. This is not an easy fight to pick, however.
Okay, so you are going to go with the dog money in a competitive fight. It's plus 150, so it's going to be 500 to win 750. Now let's throw it over to Brett. Brett, is it going to be Roy Nelson or Shane Carwin?
Well, I thought Damon did a good job of breaking it down. It's just not a fight that I feel real comfortable going with either way. Just because if we would have made this matchup, let's say 3 years ago, I think Shane Carwin would be a much heavier favorite, maybe a minus 300, minus 325, whatever it is. But because he's had these health problems, he's undergone surgery, he's been out forever, we just don't really know what to expect when this guy comes back. So this might be a line that you keep an eye on, and then once some videos are coming out of Shane Carwin, he's giving some interviews, and the media gets to him a little bit, and you get a better sense of where he's at physically, then you'll know which way you want to go. But stylistically, this fight, I think, favors Shane Carwin so much that I have to stay with Shane Carwin. He's just better on his feet than Roy Nelson, I believe. Roy, when he gets tired, he goes straight to that right hand. I think Carwin's defense is a little underrated. The one time he got beat up real bad by Dos Santos, it was because of that quick jab. Roy Nelson doesn't have Dos Santos's jab. And I also think that Shane Carwin could probably get this fight to the ground if he wants to, if he's healthy. So I'm kind of banking on the fact that he is healthy. But we'll have to see. We'll have to watch The Ultimate Fighter, see how he looks on the show. But I'm going to stick with Shane Carwin at minus 200.
Okay, so Brett is going to go with the slight juice, minus 200, so it's going to be $1,000 to win $500 on Shane Carwin over Roy Nelson. Now, a lot to be played out still on the season of The Ultimate Fighter. The fight's not happening until December 1st, so I'm sure we're going to see the line bounce up and down a little bit, and a lot of eyes are going to be tuned in to The Ultimate Fighter Season 16. So keep an eye out before you make your selections here. Okay, moving on to today's Oddsbreaker bonus fight. It's a welterweight clash that's taking place on UFC on Fox 5. It has been rescheduled. A big fight between Rory MacDonald and BJ Penn. Now, another competitive line, but surprisingly, Rory is going to come in as the favorite over the veteran in Penn. And we're going to start off with Brett first in this fight. I'm going to open up Rory MacDonald minus 240. The comeback's going to be plus 190 on BJ Penn. Now, interesting note here, the line did previously get put at the sports books, and it was higher to 3-1. But with the time change and everything that's come into play since that time, I am reopening the line at minus 240. So a lower number here. Brett, give me your take and give me your bet.
Well, I'll go ahead and hop on that 240 now because I think that'll probably go up as the fight gets closer. You know, BJ Penn is a lightweight, and he doesn't like to hear that. He doesn't like to believe in it. He wants to continue his career as a welterweight, but this guy is a different fighter at lightweight than he is at welterweight. He has to deal with guys his size, and Rory MacDonald is one of the biggest guys in the welterweight division. So already on paper, it's a big mismatch. So if you're looking for a way for BJ Penn to win, he's got that experience level on him. But, you know, Rory MacDonald has come into all of his fights with so much composure and so much confidence. I don't see him really getting frozen by the moment of fighting a guy like BJ Penn. And regardless of what happens on the feet, maybe BJ can tag him up a little bit, but I think Rory is durable and he can always get this fight to the ground, and that's the difference. I think Rory will throw BJ to the ground. BJ's got terrific takedown defense. We talk about it all the time, but it's not really like a Frankie Edgar style defense where he's moving around constantly and he's circling away from his opponent. He will back up to the cage. He will let you grab onto his leg, and he'll try and keep his balance. Against these really big guys, he's not going to be able to keep his balance. Rory will put him on his back, and from there he's going to wear him out very quickly. So I'm all over Rory MacDonald at minus 240.
Okay, so Brett is going to go with the juice in Rory over BJ Penn. It's minus 240, so it's going to be $1,200 to win $500. Let's throw it over to Damon. Damon, BJ Penn have a chance against Rory?
You know, originally, I agree with everything that Brett said, but, you know, when you look at the underdog money and you got to make a bet on this fight, you know, I haven't given up hope on BJ Penn. You know, BJ has worked really hard. He's out in Hawaii right now. He's put together a camp out there working with guys like Josh Thompson, Pat Healy. I know they're lightweights, but obviously still good that he's bringing in outside help. That's been one of BJ's biggest Achilles heels over the years, is that he's just continuously trained with the same people and never really gotten better. And the fact that he's embracing new training partners and and seems like he's really focused on getting in shape. And also, like I said, stylistically, this matchup could favor BJ on the feet, especially because Rory MacDonald, while he is shown to have good takedowns and solid ground game, his stand-up is still very, very, very underdeveloped. He is not a great stand-up fighter yet, and that's the area where BJ will have the biggest advantage. So I'm actually going to pick BJ Penn, mostly because of the underdog money on BJ Penn, because I think BJ's a guy it's hard to bet against. This is not a stylistic matchup that doesn't favor him the way the Nick Diaz fight did, where Diaz was able to beat him on the feet. I don't see Rory MacDonald beating BJ on the feet. And on the ground, we know BJ does have great defense. His jiu-jitsu is very tough. So again, stylistically, there's just something about this fight and the animosity going on that I don't know. I'm leaning towards BJ Penn. So with the underdog money, I'm going to go with BJ.
Okay, so Damon is going to go with the plus money. Plus 190 on BJ Penn. It's going to be 500 to win, 950 over Rory MacDonald. Now, both of our experts did split on this fight. Stay tuned for what Miguel and I have to say on our odds adjustment segment. All right, guys, fantastic job on today's odds breaker segment. Before we let you go, I do want to let you guys take a minute and let everybody know what's going on out there. Damon, let's start with you first.
Yeah, everybody just check me out, MMA Weekly Radio, every Monday through Thursday. And we have, obviously, the best debate in MMA on our show. And then, obviously, check out MMAweekly.com. Obviously, all the fight cards coming up, Strikeforce, UFC 151. So make sure and check me out there as well. All
right, Brett, anything you'd like to say before we let you go?
Yeah, guys can find my stuff on ESPN.com. Follow me on Twitter at Okamoto ESPN. I'm at pretty much all the events, so follow me for live updates of all the action.
All right, great stuff, guys. We'll see you again down the road.
Coming out of another great odds breaker segment, I want to thank our guests, Damon and Brett. A lot of great information, and they split on a couple of these fights, which means, Nick, explain to the people you got to adjust some of these odds that you gave them. Explain the process.
Well, just like when a number first hits a sports book, you see a little bit of movement when a max bet or two comes in. So we're going to take that same philosophy, same principle, and put it into play here during our odds adjustment segment. Now, starting off with the first fight, it was Erick Silva versus John Fitch at UFC 153. Tremendous welterweight scrap. Both guys came in on the dog, so I got to be a little bit more careful because both Brett and Damon are very sharp, very intelligent. They know what they're doing. They know what they're talking about. So when two sharp guys come in on an underdog, you got to be even more cautious. So I'm going to drop the line. It's going to now open up at minus 140 for John Fitch. The comeback on Silva is going to be plus 110. I want to get Miguel's quick thoughts here.
You know, it's been a long time since John Fitch has been in the eye of the storm. He's been in the eye of the public. He hasn't fought in a while. His last performance was, really a non-performance. So Fitch has a lot of pressure on him. He's also going to be fighting, in the other guy's hometown. I can see why this will probably close as a near pick'em fight. Fitch really has a lot of work to do in this fight because he's coming off of having been a #1 contender and people talking about him fighting for the title to now really being a complete non-factor. He needs this fight to become a factor again.
I just hope we're not underestimating John Fitch. I mean, he's really been the most dominant welterweight outside of GSP the last several years. I know he hasn't had great performances in his last couple outings with that draw, with that quick knockout loss to Hendricks, but definitely this is going to be the stiffest test in Silva's career. I mean, you cannot underestimate John Fitch at all. He's going to have the wrestling. He's going to have the stand-up game. Even though he's not flashy, a lot of people may say he's boring. He's an effective fighter. He's so well-rounded that he's a danger for anybody. I mean, he can finish this by sub. He can finish it on the feet. He can obviously lay and pray for 3 rounds. So wherever this fight goes, John Fitch is going to be game. I think he's going to be more motivated coming off that loss. So we'll see how it plays out. Okay, let's move on to the next fight. It was Rich Franklin versus Cung Le at middleweight, UFC on Fuel TV, 6 headliner. An awesome fight. Both of our guests did come in on the juice, though. Rich Franklin opens up minus 245. Damon and Brett said they have to be cautious, but they do favor Franklin in this fight, so they laid the juice. I'm going to adjust the number. It's going to come out Rich Franklin minus 260. The comeback is going to be plus 210 on Cung Le when it does hit the sports books. Let's get Miguel's quick thoughts.
I think it's a good fight. I think it is a main event worthy fight. It's a remake fight because both got taken out of the fight earlier this year and put in other matches, and now they're coming back. The first time we broke the odds for the fight, Franklin was a much heavier favorite. And what's interesting to me is Cung Le comes off of one good performance against a B-class guy. Patrick Cote's a tough guy, but basically a B-class guy. And he comes off of one good performance, and now the odds are changed pretty drastically here. And I don't know that's the way to go in this fight, especially the other factor is it's 5 rounds now. It's now a main event. It's 5 rounds, and I don't know about Cung Le's gas. Franklin has gone 5 rounds before and takes a licking, keeps on ticking kind of fighter. So I think that's to his advantage, yet the odds are lower. So that's something for the bettor to be, you know, keep their eye on.
Well, you make a lot of good points, and I see the reasoning behind it because I agree. I think being a 5-round fight now, it's going to be that much harder for Cung to win the fight. I think he had a better shot at winning a 3-rounder, maybe stealing a decision from Rich Franklin. So he's definitely climbing an uphill battle. But you also have to take in consideration odds movement. The last few times that we've had numbers on Cung, the betting public has come in that way. I mean, they really support him. They think he's probably one of the best strikers at 185. Maybe in his heyday, you can argue that, but right now, I still think the book's out on him. I know he did look impressive over Cote. I was surprised he won that fight. I have to be honest. I was favoring Cote in that fight, and I thought he would get the job done. But Cung did show me something in that fight. He showed me that he took it serious. He went 3 rounds. He was capable of winning a fight by decision. Now, the 5-round fight, I do agree with you, but I do still think that even though we're opening the odds a little bit higher now, minus 260 from the 245, like you said, previously it was 325, the action will eventually come in on Cung. So for the sports books, we're just being a little bit safer. If the public does come in on Rich Franklin, you're going to see the odds escalate a little bit higher quicker, but I think we will eventually see money back on Cung, and you can never count a striker out with that kind of credential. So that's why you're seeing the odds kind of open back up where they are right now. Okay, let's move on to the next fight. Shane Carwin versus Roy Nelson. Now, both guys recently announced as coaches for the next season of The Ultimate Fighter. So a pretty big fight to break odds on here. This, I have to be honest, it was the hardest fight for me to set out of the 4 fights. I mentioned it earlier, and it's true because you just don't know where Shane Carwin's going to be. Looking at everything on paper and through the research, he should be around a 2-to-1 favorite, if not higher, as Brett mentioned. If this fight did take place a little while back, the odds would be higher, but you have to take everything in consideration. So I am opening the line minus 200, the comeback plus 150, and Damon bet on Roy Nelson. So I'm not going to adjust the line. I think that 2-to-1 is probably a fair number at this stage to open up, and there's going to be so much time between now and the actual event that we're going to have enough time to really keep an eye on the line, keep an eye and an ear out for any injuries or how Shane Carwin's condition is, and we'll make a lot of adjustments. But before we do that, let's get Miguel's thoughts here.
Well, I'm excited about the fight. I think it's a weird fight because I think there's no way I would lay money out on this fight right now. Even with, you know, if I was in love with Roy Nelson as the underdog, I still would have to wait. There's just too many X factors, especially around Shane Carwin. I want to see on the TV show how Shane reacts to working out on a constant basis and, you know, see what kind of weight class he's dealing with. Is he going to have to throw heavyweights around and stuff? He's coming off a back surgery. He's on the plus side of 35. I'm going to wait till a lot closer to the fight and see. On his plus side, I give Carwin a lot of credit for being mentally tough and being a very serious guy. I think he's going to be a very serious coach. And if things go right for him in a training camp, then he's going to be very dangerous, and he could wipe Roy Nelson out.
Yeah, now the line's going to stay at around minus 200, plus 150 when it does hit the sports books. I am interested to see which way the public's going to bet this because they do tend to support Roy Nelson at times as well. And with the long layoff from Shane Carwin, I'm sure we'll see this line bounce up and down a little bit, but it is going to hit the sports books at 2-to-1. All right, let's head over to the bonus fight. It was BJ Penn versus Rory MacDonald. Now, another fight that got postponed from its original date. Now it's going to be the co-main event for UFC on Fox 5. So a lot of eyes are going to be on this fight. I did open up Rory, the favorite, minus 240. The comeback on BJ Penn was plus 190. A lot of people feel that Rory has not been tested. He's definitely got all the skills. Is BJ Penn going to be that test?
I think so. I think BJ Penn's one of those guys, you know, all-time great, champion multiple weight classes, and he's definitely going to be a stiff test. The problem with BJ that I see is that he's had trouble, as one of our guests commented too, at the welterweight division. And I think he's skilled enough and great enough of a fighter that he becomes Rory's test and that BJ does go out on his shield here.
I am glad that they made this matchup because it's going to answer a lot of questions here. Brett coming in on Rory MacDonald, so he laid the juice. Now Damon on the other side, he took the plus money on BJ Penn. So I'm not going to move the line. It is going to remain at the sportsbook at minus 240, the comeback plus 190. I do think we're going to see back and forth action here. When it did hit the sportsbooks the first time, the line was a little bit closer to minus 300. So we could see the line kind of climb up towards that way, but I think by fight time, we'll see the respect coming in on BJ Penn. And a lot of people, like I said, do feel this is Rory's stiffest test to date. He did fight Carlos Condit, so we should mention that. And he did really well in that particular fight too. But this is a different beast in BJ Penn. Is he going to make it through? I have a feeling he will, but we're going to have to see how it plays out on UFC on Fox 5.
Well, that's it for another episode of MMA Oddsbreakers. I want to thank our two special guests, Damon Martin and Brett Okamoto, for joining us. Great information as always, guys. Thanks a ton. And don't forget to start looking for the lines that Nick broke right here on the show to start popping up at the sport books throughout the coming week.
And also, you can check out our website, MMAOddsbreaker.com, or follow us on Twitter at MMAOddsbreaker. For Miguel Iturrate, I'm Nick Kalikas saying until next time, enjoy the fights.